Thanks to all my supporters on Ko-Fi, or Coffee. If you want to support me there as well, please have a look. You can choose the amount you want to give me either one time or monthly. And monthly supporters will be listed in special videos like this here, no matter the amount. Disclaimer, this video was recorded and produced between the September 2024 PDB and the actual announcement of the live version, so I don't know for sure if the PDB changes are going live as they were on the PDB. In February 2023, a PDB was rolled out, including a lot of good things. The Red Forest biome got a visual update, map repeat prevention was introduced for the first time, bots got loadouts for custom games, and some perks like Eruption and Any Means Necessary got significant changes to be an overall better version of themselves. But in this PDB there was also another drop of content. One that split the community as much at first as it united it later on. This was the first time when we saw the DLC Tools of Torment, featuring Talita and Renato Lura as survivors, bringing the first and so far only 2 teamwork perks into the game. And then there was her, the killer that was hyped first but hated pretty much the moment the community faced her and saw her lore. Adriana Imai, better known as the Skull Merchant. While today the Skull Merchant is probably the most hated killer in the game by far, if you look at Reddit and some posts where people are asking for the most disliked killers, you also see Trickster, Clown, Legion and Wesker, but nothing comes up as much as Skull Merchant does. Why is that? What happened in the past that she got this much hatred? Even considering she's already a shadow of her former self, she will now get another nerf to stomp her into the grave. And as you have seen in my videos about the October 2024 PDB, the hatred doesn't seem to stop at all. So what exactly happened here? In February 2023, when she entered the PDB, to be honest, she was underperforming. She felt weak and needed a lot of practice to get somewhat decent levels to players. Unless you did one specific thing, forcing 3 gens. To understand that, you must understand first how much different her power was back then. The original version of Skull Merchant didn't have scan lines on the drones all the time. A few seconds after you placed the drone, it went into active mode. Every survivor being in that area got scanned all the time and over 10 seconds built up progress on the exposed effect. Similar to Wesker's virus, but only growing while you were inside a drone area. The exposed effect was permanent if you kept hanging around in the drone area and lingering for 60 seconds after you left the area. If you entered the drone zone again, the 60 seconds got refreshed again as well. If there was no survivor in the area, after some time the drone went into scouting mode, using 2 invisible scan lines similar to the ones that are now triggered after placing a drone. These scan lines were scanning for survivors, and if a survivor was found, it would switch back into active mode, and again everybody in that area was building up progress towards their claw trap or exposed effect. Of course you could enter it like you do nowadays and just stand still or crouch, and it would help you to dodge it. So it's not very helpful during a chase, for sure, but you could handle the drones quite well outside of chases. Back then drones also worked on all floors simultaneously. So if you have a generator in a dead end of the game or Midwich Elementary School for example, you went to the same spot a floor higher or lower and placed the drone there. So survivors had to make a detour to actually get rid of the drone instead of having them placed next to the generator like you have nowadays. With all these conditions, Chess Merchant and 3-genning was born. Back then, generators could be kicked as many times as you wanted, so defending 3 generators as Skull Merchant with her 4 drones was pretty easy on most maps. You spawned, found the 3 gens that were the closest to each other, and camped these generators until the very end. One Skull Merchant main was so good at this, he stalled one of the best competitive survivor teams for about 45 minutes in a game. This playstyle also got very popular amongst more casual players, as it was an easy win against less skilled survivor players, but even higher MMR struggled against it, losing most of the game to that strategy. At this point we had a killer that was roughly around mid-tier if you didn't play for 3gen or Chess Merchant, which is basically the same, but as you did, the killer was starting to be a problem for the community as much as for the developers. And just for context, that was not all to her power, exposed work differently, undetectable as well. There were major changes to certain numbers of her kit, but these are not as important to look into for this video. If you want to find more information on this, I will place the link to the DVD wiki and her article in the description. So what did behavior do to make Skull Merchant less attractive to be played in this 3gen style? They changed a lot of perks, introduced the 8-kick concept for generators, and also nerfed Skull Merchant in a way that makes her less attractive to play 3gening. So everybody should be happy now, right? I honestly wish, but no. Reality looks different. First, let's have a look at all the changes behavior used to get rid of the 3gen strategy. First, the perks. In April 2023, so pretty fast after Skull Merchant got introduced, a lot of gen regression perks and slowdown perks got nerfed. This included Call of Brine, Overcharge, Pop Ghost of Weasel and Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. Call of Brine got nerfed from 200% regression rate to 125, Overcharge from 200 to 130% maximum regression rate. Pain Res had a token system introduced and went from 25% damage on every Scourge Hook to 15% with a maximum of 4 activations, 1 per survivor. Second, the Skull Merchant nerf. In September 2023, behavior delivered a nerf to the PDB that changed how Skull Merchant works in a way you could say she's a new killer. And the old one got deleted. Drones got a complete new way of working, same goes to claw traps, and sure, some of the base elements stuck around, but basically it was a change like day and night. Drones didn't operate in active and scouting mode anymore, they now had stealth and scout mode, and while that sounds not too bad at first, the whole effect of scanning 2 or more floors at the same time as well as the exposed effect were gone. Drones now always had scan lines and could easily be dodged at all times by crouching or just standing still in every state. Working on generators counts as crouching, so placing drones next to generators didn't do much anymore. Claw traps still caused the broken effect, but at least they weren't exposed anymore. You might wonder how that's different, and at first it might look like the same, but in the actual game and in terms of counterplay and mechanics it makes a huge difference. But still, this wasn't enough. Third, the 8-kick concept. This was not only introduced because of Skull Merchant, but I honestly believe that she was a major reason behind it. In February 2024, so almost a year after Skull Merchant was introduced, the devs introduced the 8-kick concept for generators. In short, you can only actively damage generators 8 times before they get blocked by the entity. You still can kick it afterwards to trigger perks like Nowhere to Hide, but you won't do any damage to the generator anymore. An active damage would be, for example, a normal or perk buffed kick, damage through Pain Resonance or damage inflicted by Surge. Hex Ruin, however, doesn't count towards that limit, same as failed skill checks from survivors. To compensate for that, however, the damage killers do to generators was buffed from 2.5% total progress to 5% total progress, and survivors just can't quickly touch generators for half a second to stop regression, but actively have to repair it for 5% again to stop the regression. As you don't get to 8 kicks per gen usually, except you use Surge and down many people around the same area, or play a 3gen strategy, this is fair change for most games. After all these nerfs and changes, you would expect that Skull Merchant is in a good shape and place. The mechanics that allow 3gen and Chess Merchant playstyles are completely removed or prevented, so why is almost everybody still hating her so much? I wish the answer to that would be simple, but while digging through forum threads and Reddit posts, I noticed that there is so much burnt soil around Skull Merchant. It's almost impossible to dig everything up in a video that's under 4 hours long, so I decided to go for the biggest reasons that I read over and over again. And one thing to clarify first here, I do not intend to attack somebody or anybody personally here. There are multiple ways to play the game and each and every of it is legitimate. No matter if you play the game only in custom lobbies with your friends to have fun, or if you play it in a comp team, or if you just enjoy normal matchmaking games or anything in between, every single of them has the right to exist. Group 1. People didn't even realize she got changed though. If you watch YouTube videos like mine to this point and you are here now, you might wonder, how did people not notice she got changed? It should be quite obvious, but that's not the case. If you watch videos like this one, there is a very high chance you dig so much deeper into Dead by Daylight than the average person would do in most cases. The majority of players don't read patch notes. Only announcements if they are big enough or interesting enough. The group of high or pro MMR is so small compared to the majority that people simply didn't notice the change. Group 2. People who read about it but didn't understand the changes. Dead by Daylight is complex, and I mean really complex. In terms of game mechanics, counter mechanics and all the under and overlaying layers, understanding a killer ability to its fullest needs you to invest time and learn that ability for both to play as and against. Some people just didn't buy the DLC for whatever reason or didn't want to learn how to play as or against Skull Merchant, so they didn't understand the changes. For these people, Skull Merchant is also still the same as before, similar to the first group. Also, there are people that simply don't want to learn to play against certain killers because they simply hate them too much. I'll include these people here as it's the same outcome even though it's a different reason. Group 3. People who understood the changes but still hate her for various other reasons. These reasons could be the previous versions of Skull Merchant or maybe her lore, which, to be fair, is not the best written story ever, to put it politely. Or many other reasons, like they feel that she's not looking or behaving like a real killer, or simply find her movement animations ridiculous. But these are probably not realizing that some other killers have similar issues on these animations, but as they don't have to find reasons to hate these killers, they just don't see it. I even found a comment about hating her because she is using skulls for the drones. Don't ask me how this person survived more than 2 hours in DBD without refunding it, but here we are. Many of the people in this group are so used to hate her, they simply don't want to or can't change their mind about her. At this point, Skull Merchant is so burnt out, I honestly believe nothing that behavior does could make a majority of the people actually like her. So is this all the community's fault? Is it the community's fault to quote-unquote misuse a killer in a way that makes behavior nerf perks the killer themselves and even create a core mechanic to affect all killers just to make one killer less oppressive? Or is it behavior's fault for even giving us the possibility in the first place? I honestly can't answer these questions. I tried to find an answer for that question as much as I tried to find a solution that could benefit Skull Merchant in a way to get at least some of the damage reversed or sorted. But honestly, even if behavior finds a magic way to solve all the issues Skull Merchant has overnight, I believe that most people just wouldn't care anymore, as the hatred against her is seeded way too deep to be removed. Behavior gives us certain tools with every killer, and in Skull Merchant's case, one of the tools was intended for almost global map pressure thanks to the drones. But you could also play her in a territorial way, using it only in a part of the map, and that was broke her concept in my opinion. You could say naming the DLC Tools of Torment was quite a foreshadowing. Devs and players got tormented quite alike with all the impact delivered by Skull Merchant. On the other hand, we know we have a problem with hatred in the community in general. It's not as big as people make it sometimes, but still it's there. And Skull Merchant is pretty close to the reasons around the core of this group of players. The worst part about this is that you can't do anything against it. These people are not open for arguments, they hate things in the game for the sake of hating them. Neither you nor me will be able to change their opinions on anything or actually prove that they are objectively wrong, because it simply doesn't count, no matter what you say. But at the same time, the devs can't obviously also not do anything against them, as they don't break any terms of service unless they start to insult other players playing as the characters they hate, killers and survivors alike. As someone who loved to play as Skull Merchant before and after the rework, it's quite sad to see how people simply surrender just because it's Skull Merchant. Recently I picked her in Chaos Shuffle V2 in September 2024 and had a somewhat terrible list of perks, barely used drones except for a bit of stealth here and there, and the survivor team surrendered almost immediately just because it's Skull Merchant. Even if she's not even a shadow of her release version anymore. This killer was sort of a fresh breeze into the game, giving you an ability that was not tied to the character permanently. And keep in mind there's only one killer where the power can work passively like it can on Skull Merchant, and that is Trapper. And the result of this power was an outburst that probably will make behavior to stop develop similar powers in the future. It even went so far that we can assume the current September 2024 PDB changes are going through and Skull Merchant will be nothing like the first version anymore at all. She won't be unplayable, but she will need a lot more skill and much more proactive gameplay and micromanagement to be even somewhat successful. Considering we have much stronger and more complex killers in the game now with Vecna and Dracula, maybe people would be willing to learn to play against the first version of Skull Merchant if she was released now, without all that hate that she has already accumulated over the time. But that we will never know. The original video should have ended here, but we got the patch notes for the live patch delivered during this production, so I'll do an additional chapter of the video here. One thing I wanted to add, because I forgot this in the last script: before the rework, if you sabotage the drones as a survivor, they would not be broken and re-enabled after some time, but actually sent back to Skull Merchant. Considering her drones got so much weaker and can be outplayed by simply crouching or standing still all the time, that seemed a fair trade-off at the time. But back to the current PDB, to the live notes. Long story short, she got a few small buffs compared to the PDB, but trades that for some additional nerfs and people are crying again. They still take away one of the two scan lines, which renders drones to a complete joke at this point, but you get a 5% haste if and only if you scan a survivor within 5 seconds of placing a drone or changing its rotation direction. This is going towards high level micromanagement, and most Skull Merchant, especially the ones that don't main her or only pay her sometimes casually, will barely ever get that buff. But people are crying that it's too much, because that's a value of 2 people being scanned on the radar at the moment, not even considering how much more difficult that effect is to trigger. Also, the hinted status effect got quote-unquote buffed from 5% to 8% compared to PDB. But if you compare it to the live version, it's a nerf from 10% to 8%. Also again, the hindered effect only triggers when you get scanned by a drone while already having a claw trap attached to you. With only one scan line on the drone, it's significantly more difficult to get that hindered on a survivor. All the negative reactions to something that's still a huge nerf in total, but quote-unquote she is too strong again on this, end quote, just leaves me without any words, but it also proves that what I wrote and recorded almost a week ago being right. The hatred and the ignorance she's facing is completely off limits by now, and I have no idea how that can be salvaged at all. Maybe until people actually can understand what's going on with her. And maybe sharing this video can help a few more people to understand? We will see. One last thing the devs promised was that they will be going and looking into Skull Merchant in the far future again, and we should expect another full rework in 8 to 10 months. I know I'm repeating myself here because I probably said that somewhere on stream or in another video or somewhere else, but I still want this to be in this video just to have it completely said again. They promised it on Freddy, Trickster, Onryu and so many other killers to look into the killer again, ever since they never ever mentioned them again. So I wouldn't keep too much value to that promise. And even if they look into it and they are fine now, they could communicate that, which they don't do. Quite the opposite. On Freddy they promised last year that the rework will be going live this year, and in the last developer stream they said it will be coming 2025. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, until next time, stay safe.